When people say I'm not political, I'm like, oh, well, so what do you think of the bin collection? And then they'll go into a rant about the bin collection. You're like, well, that's a political statement. What do you think of schools? Oh, well, that's a political statement. Business rates, employment insurance, pensions, all of these things, they're all political. So so when people say I'm not political, just ask them questions, and you'll soon find that they do have a lot of opinions.
All right, welcome back to What Do We Do Next? I'm sitting here with Aceil Haddad, and I'm excited to get into this conversation. Over the last decade, she has built a career at the intersection of communications, public policy, and social change. Her work has often taken place behind the scenes, shaping campaigns, influencing debate, and helping leaders communicate complex ideas with clarity and conviction. She's worked across business, politics, and the third sector, supporting organizations navigating reputation, policy, and stakeholder engagement. Aceil founded Matt PR to help organizations communicate with purpose and impact. Through the agency, she's advised developers, landlords, workspace operators, and social organizations on strategic communications, public affairs, and stakeholder engagement. She also helped elevate maternity, discrimination, and childcare on the national agenda through her work with Pregnant Then Screwed, amazing name, contributing to campaigns that influence legislation, including the Flexible Working Bill. During the pandemic, she founded a volunteer-led PR agency, which mobilized more than 250 volunteers to support over 120 charities and community organizations at a time of national crisis. So solid. At this time, leading a campaign called But Not Maternity, which seek to stop women giving birth and attending appointment scans along without their assigned birth partner. Alongside her professional work, she's deeply interested in civic leadership, political participation, and has served as school governor at Ascend School, where she chaired a community center and advised organizations on diversity and representation in public life. So let's get right into it. What I really like about, first of all, you've lived obviously a life of service, organizing people, mobilizing people, all these, 250 volunteers, with 120 charities, especially in the pandemic, because everybody was overwhelmed. People were in space to the grocery store, afraid to touch their doorknob, thought they were going to die any moment. So that was a really hard time to mobilize people because they didn't even want to come out of their houses. Never mind, right? So let's get into what lit that fire for you. How did you get into all of this? Who inspired you to be this strong, loud, woman getting people to do things?
Gosh, I mean, I think it probably stems from my mum. My mum ran a council estate, which maybe you'd call a project. And my mum was really involved, on the grassroots, setting up a doctor's surgery in the projects, setting up a TV channel, setting up a food bank, a Sure Start Centre as well, which is for nurseries. So I was dragged along to a lot of things, but so it's sort of deep rooted in my blood, I think. But I think that people are desperate to take part; they just don't know how. And so when you present opportunities, people are game for it. So I know you said that during the pandemic people don't want to go out, but I found recruiting people really easy because everyone felt powerless and everyone should retain some power or feel like they could do something. And we're not nurses, but we are communicators, so they were throwing their skills at me, which was wonderful.
That's incredible. I grew up in a very Irish household and around like great, speech writers and performers and presenters. And so I get it. Sometimes the stuff gets, inserted into your DNA, whether you like it or not. This is a time where everybody is feeling really overwhelmed as well, right? We are all, it's even too much. And a lot of people say, oh, well, we're not meant to consume this much information, which is true, but we are. And this is where we are. We are in this moment, whether we like it or not, whether we're designed for it or not. So how can people stay grounded and focused and clear on these missions and not overwhelmed in these crazy times?
I think it's understanding what you can do and what you can't do. The pandemic being a great example. I'm not a doctor. I'm not medically trained. That's not my skill set. I could cook. I could have maybe cook some food for the doctors, but actually it's mobilising people. That's my skill, and so I think everyone has their own skill, and that we're all as valuable as each other. Whether you're a hairdresser and there's some wonderful work that they're doing around making homeless people feel valued and confident, through to people who are obviously in finance teaching people how to do their finances. So we've all got something. We just need to unlock that and give that to other people.
I guess not be afraid to give it or not feel like you're, it doesn't matter, it's not important, right? Because it's like you said, all of it matters. Making money is a great tool for women to get out of situations that they're in. So it's just as
100%.
important as, everything else, going to a food bank or, everything else. What
So
about the people?
go on. I was going to say, I understand the feeling of powerlessness. We sit here. I've got a lovely CV. I've done lots of lovely things, but I sit there sometimes and think, this is fucking shit. Am I allowed to swear?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I thought it was going to be me first, but it was you. So this is great. This is super relief, honestly.
Sometimes think I feel terrible. And what's going on in the Middle East. I'm Middle Eastern. I see the faces of kids who are blown up, and I see myself, I see my family, and it's painful. There are times that I don't want to do that, and you've just got to understand that you just got to sit back, absorb it, understand it, why it hurts you, and use that to power the next stage.
And I think right now it's a difficult situation because there's like so much fake stuff and AI, but then there's real stuff, and it's really hard to kind of navigate through all of that. And I think, for me, it's been coming up a lot where, like, I was at a party recently and I made a joke, and then somebody was like, Molly makes everything political. And I was like, well, that was an underhanded comment, but everything is political, and I never thought I was a political person either. I really didn't. Even being from DC, I have a greater understanding of it, but I didn't think that it was a motivating force, but I don't really feel like we have a choice. So where do you say to people who are like, I'm not political, or I don't want to talk about politics, or I'm not as educated as you? Like, somebody said that to me yesterday, and I was like, I appreciate the compliment, but I don't know if I would call myself educated. Experienced, you know what I mean? Sure. Educated, no. But sometimes you just got to go figure it out, right? You got to...
Yeah, I mean, politics, the language around politics is used to exclude. We need to take note of that. The language of men, the language of... It is only barriers. But you've got to just see past that. When people say I'm not political, I'm like, oh, so what do you think of the bin collection? And then they'll go into a rant about the bin collection. You're like, well, that's a political statement. What do you think of schools? Oh, well, that's a political statement. What do you think of the cost of getting your hair cut? Oh, well, it's gone up loads in the last few years. Well, business rates, employment insurance, pensions, all of these things, they're all political. So so when people say I'm not political, just ask them questions, and you'll soon find that they do have a lot of opinions.
Yeah, I mean, because everything is political. The medication you take, where you live, how often your street is cleaned, what schools your kid. I mean, it's all. And I think you're right. I think it's been, ever since being a kid growing up in the United States, like the first thing I learned is that like politicians lie. Like, before I even knew like what a politician was or what they were lying about, I just knew that. And they do make it very confusing. I ran for office. I was on a slate a few years ago, and I got a few months into it, and I realized I had no business being there. And luckily, I was on the second page of the ballot, and so I didn't get as many votes, and so I didn't win.
Well, I would disagree with you. You do belong there. Everyone belongs there. You're living, breathing, working, contributing. We all belong on those things. But you're absolutely right. People use that language to beef each other up, like to showcase I've got the biggest word in my armory. It's like, I don't really care. If you want to use a convoluted word, use a convoluted word, but it just means confusing. That's on you, not me.
Well, and it's like in the tech world too, like all these tech bros using, and you're like, shut up, man. You're just saying the same thing. You don't even make any sense, And when you get a better understanding, it's easier to see through that. You're like, man, just be quiet. So let's talk about
Oh no! I was just thinking about the tech world, and like it blows my mind sometimes when people use words, and it's just used as a power trip. It's like, oh, LLMs, and like, yeah, just say AI, just say AI or ChatGPT. People don't need to know that verbiage, and that's fine, But you're using that to exclude somebody from the conversation and say, I know more than you.
That's exactly what it is, and I feel like that has a lot to do with protecting those places of power, of course, let's talk about, you've worked on a lot of campaigns, changing policy, right? Because that's the biggest one. Like Trump has done so much damage in our country. We're going to have to redo so much and rehire and rebuild. And a lot of those systems need to be rebuilt differently anyway. They weren't working and they were too vulnerable, obviously, because they were destroyed way too quickly. So it's a new time. So what does making real change look like inside of a campaign?
Yeah, I think you've got to know that you're not going to change things overnight. First first lesson. I think that's where people fall, thinking that we're going to go in guns blazing. I've got all the solutions and it's going to be fine. No, we're dealing with systems that have been in place for hundreds of years, and so you've got to realise it's all about creating allies, getting somewhere, working together, finding the holes, making sure that you've got the rationale. Like sometimes people say things and it all sounds great, but you've got to think about the cost and how are you going to fund that? How are you going to raise the money for it? Are you going to put it on taxes? Oh right, okay, so that means that people are going to say no because our taxes are already too high. So how can you cross fund it? So it's thinking of all the different layers and realizing that it's going to take 5 to 10 years, not 5 minutes or even 5 months.
And I feel like every bit further we get in this timeline, that timeline increases because there's just so much damage, not just physically but mentally and globally. And I mean, we've really destroyed all of our international relationships in the last 2 weeks. I mean, really.
Well, let's not go into it. But you have a president that thinks that you can just do an executive order and do whatever you want to do. So maybe the next person will think, well, I could do that and change things overnight. But I mean, even then, even if they do it for the right reasons, you need to take people along with you always. In order to get to the best position, nothing can be done overnight.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that it's a good time to rebuild. Well, maybe not in this exact moment, but it's time to rebuild these things because they weren't working. They're just not working the way they are. It's set up for man. We already know all the problems, but
It's set up for a different world. Where you just had the news once a day and the news in your newspaper. That those times have passed. It will take you as long as it takes for there somebody to type up the bill. Like, we can create bills very quickly. That there is a positive and negative to that as well. But processes do need to move forward much quicker, and there is some work that needs to be done in all of our parliaments to get there. But that too will take time, and then it will need some censorship itself. Like, how can you sense check it and make sure that it's all right? Because otherwise, we can get some nonsense come through.
yeah, I mean, my mom, she wasn't the best, but she used to always say, politics is like a pendulum swing, and it always hits the outer edges, but ends up somewhere in the middle. And so we have to be careful that we don't swing that pendulum so far in the other direction that we've lost the plot as well, right? We need fair, balanced, thoughtful, strong foundations, not just knee-jerk reactions. Because as sometimes when you put efforts in making things safer, you make them more dangerous, right? Like bottled water, right? You use it for 3 minutes, but it's poisoning the planet with all this plastic. We really, like, the more we try to do, the worse things get sometimes. So I think slow and steady is going to win the race. You've oscillated between local and national campaigns. Where do you think people should start, or how should they figure that out?
Oh, that's a really good question. I suppose, what is your issue? What is it you want to take forward? And where does power lie to change that? So thinking about, say, a local library that's closing, that sits at a local level. So you need to get local politicians on board. You need to take that to a local government because that's where the funding sits. Whereas if you have an issue, say, with, we're not spending our pensions in our countries, that is a national issue. So you need to take that to the top level. So it's understanding where, what is your issue and where does that power sit to sort that out. But I think we could all get involved in all campaigns. And, what is a campaign? A campaign is identifying the issue, providing a solution and steps to get there, and bringing people on the journey and recruiting politicians to say what you want, what you want them to do, but also showing that this is my team that wants this to change. These are the people that it's going to affect, and this is who wants that.
I definitely have seen some people popping up, like, all of a sudden wanting to get into politics and maybe having a little bit naive views on that. Do you think people should just go forth anyway and just figure it out as they go? Because if you have the drive, it's like owning a restaurant. Everybody owns a restaurant. Says, if I knew what I knew, no, if I knew what I know now, I never would have opened this restaurant. You have to go into it with some naivete and optimism that might be a little bit unfounded because it's going to be a long road, you know.
Yeah, having a restaurant politics is the same. It's like you need to make the numbers work. You need to get people to vote for you. You need to get customers to come in. Those are your big key things. So, I love that people want to go into politics, but you need to make sure that whatever message it is that you have actually has an audience and has people supporting you. And if you don't, you also then need to do some listening, and I think, how can I reevaluate what I'm doing and change who or where I want to get to from what I'm hearing? Because, if you want to go into politics, it's about the collective voice. It's not about your voice. And I think that that's also the big problem with politics, is we have far too many politicians who are in it for themselves rather than thinking about the people that they represent. And what if they did that a bit more, it would be a vastly different place.
Right. It's like, are you an influencer or a politician? You know what I mean? Like, pick which one, right? And I really like what you said about like figuring out what it is that you can do, because I think, I talk about this with women in business a lot, right? And we're told like, follow your passion, create something in your heart. That's terrible business advice. Figure out where the demand is and then create the supply, then try to align it with something that works with you. That's how you create a sustainable business, not by like, oh, I'm positive everybody wants a hot pretzel truck, in Philly. Right.
I have a real problem at the moment, and I wrote a LinkedIn post about this the other day, is why is it always incumbent on women to build sustainable, ethical businesses? That is not a women's domain. It doesn't have to be a women's domain. And this is also where we trip up and fall, because we're like so obsessed with creating the best of every, it has to be all of these different things, that actually where we need to get to is if we need to share power. We need men or women to be powerful in the same way. And that is about finance and a successful business. I would love to see more women at the top of the oil game, say, because then we wouldn't see shit like we are now, because we would have already thought, actually, we probably better prepare for a war, because we know that when the gas runs out, we can't boil our pasta.
Right. The boys aren't even thinking about that. I'm not even calling them men anymore. They're just boys. And I agree. I think it's so imperative that women make money, and we've been taught like it's like oogly to talk about it or rude. And it's like rich people talk about money all the time. Men talk about money all the time, and they don't have any shame in making money and closing deals. And I've said this a million times, when we make more money, our families are better, our communities are better, our employees are better, everybody around us is better, because we invest back into our communities. We do good things with that money. So the data is there, 100%. 100%.
I think giving money to women is the most sensible policy, because that woman will likely, whatever she builds, even if we think it's unethical, she will probably employ more women. She'll probably source things more locally, and she'll probably think of things in a completely different way in the way she manages a business. So,
yeah, I agree. And I want to touch on what you said about the things that you're good at. And so I think that's really, really important, because a lot of people are like, well, what do I know? I've never been in politics. Well, you know what? They need people to put up signs. They need people to organize meetings. They need people to welcome people to the meetings and get email. There are lots of things that you can do inside of a campaign that might not look like traditional political work, would have a ton of value, right? Whatever it is. And so I really like that, because I think that's relevant, especially when so many people are feeling overwhelmed. For me, it was easy. I was like, I own a media company. I built a bunch of political template websites. So if anybody wants to run for office, they're like these super slick, badass, like with all the features you need at a great price. I'm giving all women 10% off this year. I decided, I was driving the other day and I thought, you know what? Every single woman that works with me this year gets 10% off. Everything I do. You get 10, because I'm giving women a leg up for once instead of the other way around. And I started the podcast. I'm like, this is my way. I was detained by ICE last year in Miami. I live in Costa Rica. I won't even step foot in U.S. soil because I know they're going to detain me again. So I came back here and I started this podcast, because at least I can use my voice and hopefully talk to other people. And at least we get 30 minutes of learning who we bombed or killed. You know what I mean? It's a break from, we'll take what we can get at this point. You know what I mean? Like every little moment of, peace. And
thing that you said that I think a lot of is you don't always have to be the main character. That also blows my mind when we talk about politics. It's like, everyone has to be the main character. No, you can just support people. You can just be the one who says, you go and be the front of it. Do you know what? If you need me to do some admin, that's what I'm good at. Great, because that means that person can go forward because we believe in that person. Not everyone has to be front and center, and not everyone has to be like something that really pisses me off, particularly around American politics. Is like, they're very Trumpian. He's like a nasty villain in a book, and it's like that's not what we need more of. We don't need more people like that. We need people who just think constructively. We need people who can do the right thing, but we only get there if we remove that demand for everyone to be the main character.
And I think when you're not 100% clear, definitely don't try to be the main character, right? I don't want to do that. I would much rather build 15 websites and make sure that they're collecting emails and getting donations and getting all the support that they should be getting from their website. I would rather put all of my energy into that so that they can go be successful. And I think if we all did more of that, and it's not like I'm doing these things for free, right? I don't necessarily have to sacrifice or impact the stability of my employees in the process, but I can definitely do it better and cheaper than everybody else and faster and be people's secret weapons. And no one needs to know that I was the one that built the website. Like, it has nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? My company name is nowhere near that. I just want to be supportive. And so I think, you don't have to be the one running for office to be wildly impactful. In fact, people's main campaign managers are really they're like the women of the household, right? Like, they're the ones who are actually making everything move while the candidate is out on stages. But the people behind the scenes are really where everything's happening.
But I think but you raise an interesting point, and I think there's something that I really want to encourage is for people to think of, and I do that as well throughout my time. It's like, I take personal pride when I see other people succeed, and it's like, I took part in that, But it doesn't need to be an external validation. You can sit there and go, I did that. I helped contribute to that, and that is pretty bloody amazing.
It is. It's the best stuff. I do a lot of that in Costa Rica. I'll build websites for local businesses for free and just give it to them. And I'm like, I don't tell anybody, but I don't make a big post. I just do it because it's not that hard for me, and it'll really impact their business in a positive way. And I enjoy my community and I want to do that, but I don't tell anybody about it. I don't make a big, on LinkedIn, look what I did today. It's like, no, you know what I mean? It's just, that's how I want to be a member of my community. That's how I want to show up. Right. And I'm a little bit loud and obnoxious. So me speaking might be bad for them. So I'm like, here's a website. I'll go away now. You do your thing. And then I'll yell on the internet for the people who like that kind of thing, Speaking of male crossover, I was looking at my analytics yesterday. My social is not monetized and it never will be, but I just was looking at a snapshot, and my listeners are mostly 65-year-old women, and then there's 22% men, and a bunch of men were like, I'm in the 22%. They were very proud to be in
Hang on. We're not afraid to make money. You need to monetize that shit. You need to change that, and then you can reinvest that in women, or how I do things in how I run my business. As I work for a lot of corporate companies, but that enables me to spend time on lots of pro bono projects. I don't come from money. I can't afford to do things. So one has to be the other. And so if you can monetize it, then that monetization, you can go, that's my payment for getting our street vendor in Costa Rica on the internet, making sure that he can monetize his business. That's your payment in a way. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, well, you never know. They'll probably ban me if I monetize it because of all this crazy stuff I think. But no, I think you're right. And, I actually made a shift because for years I would do too many things for free for people, and then I wouldn't be able to pay my rent or get an Uber home. And I poured from an empty cup until it broke me. And now I have an 80-20 rule, which is different than most, but it's 80% of my work needs to be paid. And then the last 20 can be altruistic. Then I can give it all away. But the 80 got to come first because I got to pay my employees and my rent and my bills because I can't keep doing the work if I can't pay them. And that was a big shift. You know what I mean? Secure the bag first and then go be Santa Claus.
You've got to be able to pay your bills. I've got to be able to pay my bills because no one else is going to pay it. And the state isn't going to pay it. So I have got to make sure that I earn that money because otherwise it's redundant, it's pointless. And I've got 2 kids to feed for.
Yeah, I got 3 dogs, not the same, but let's
I
work.
got a dog as well.
Lots of food for sure. Okay, so and I have another question for you here. The most important thing to talk about is women, politics, disinformation, and propaganda. So let's touch on that a little bit. Why is it so important for women to be in this space right now?
Women are being pushed out faster and faster. Propaganda, AI, all of these things. I was in a school last week where it's funny, I didn't write that in my bio, but I give workshops on misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. And some of the girls in the class are like, I just don't go on. And like, that's not the solution though, is it? Because what that means is that your voice is being eradicated as a woman. We need to make sure that we're in those spaces. We need to make sure that we're helping to co-create and design those spaces. And once we are not in the room, once our voices are not heard, we're going to find more problems. Like all of this, we are only getting to a worse place as society if women are not in the room, if our voices are not being heard. We are not going to be, we're allowing ourselves to be made smaller and smaller and not part of the conversation. And that is a really massive issue. Like I'm absolutely terrified that we are going backwards in a rapid rate. And then the men go, well, there aren't enough women coming forward. Well, you've created the environment that means that women can't come forward. So we need more women to push other women, even though we don't like them sometimes, and just go, we just need you in the room. If you're bold and able to do it, let's do it. Let's push you. But yeah, that's my thought.
No, I think I really needed to hear that because I have been slowly disassociating from LinkedIn because I'm just so sick of it. But and all the gender inequality there and the women's suppression of our voices, and that's how we got connected. But it's so real, and every time I open up LinkedIn, I just get so pissed off, and then I rage post something and I close it. I took it off my phone. Like I'm done with it. But you're right. I shouldn't remove my voice from LinkedIn, even if it's not getting all the. I don't care about the impressions anyway, but I shouldn't remove my voice. That's the exact opposite of what I should do because I am in a unique position. I live in another country, so they can't come beating down my door. I own my business. Can't nobody tell me what I can and cannot say. You know what I mean? I'm the youngest of 4 Irish Catholic kids. Nobody can tell me what to say, even if I didn't own the business. Let's be honest, And so I am in a unique position to be bold and fearless. And all my clients know that about me. They're like, Molly, you crazy girl. We love that shit. We can't say it. We're corporate. So there's no reason. I have nothing to lose. And honestly, if using my voice like repels people, bye. That's the great thing about turning 50. I'm like, don't like me? Perfect. Go away. It's great. Stay over there. I do not care. I've never not cared more in my entire life about people who don't like me. It's the best gift you could ever get, honestly. So I think I need to use my voice more on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And more than anything, it's like you embolden other people to use their voice or to show a bit more of themselves. And it's like that's so important. I mean, I absolutely hate LinkedIn, but I try and post consistently because I know that you have to be in front of people. And we all forget, which podcast should I listen to? Which podcast to listen to? There's thousands. And so if I see yours pop up again and again, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to listen to that. And then, or if I need a business, I'm going to use them because we can only hold so much information, and we're so bombarded with information that yes, you've got to participate in that attention-grabbing economy and keep contributing. Otherwise, you make yourself redundant.
Amen. These conversations always have good reminders in them, and so I will get back on my LinkedIn posting game. Because all the women that I got connected with, like you through Cindy Gallup, you guys all write like really thoughtful, well-written, long, articulate posts. Like you're not just like fishing for likes or twerking for the algorithm, as I like to call it. You're actually putting out content that's really valuable and important. And that I reposted some of your stuff. That's how we got, that's how I got connected.
And I mean, look, if you don't like what I do, that's fine. Like, I don't care, because it doesn't impact me. Like, I think that we need to move away from caring about what people think, because the moment that we're trying to appease people all the time, we're appeasing no one, especially ourselves, and that's when it gets even worse. If you can't make yourself happy, what's the point?
Well, and that's what I don't think people realize. I think that this era of civility and nodding and smiling and pretending like everything's okay, it doesn't work for our generation and the women younger than us. We're not doing that anymore, you know? So, it's okay to say that you don't like it. It's okay to acknowledge that you don't like the people you're around, but then do something about it. Don't just sit across from them and nod and smile, because that like rocks you from the inside out. Like, I'm a principle over circumstance kind of a girl. Like, it's not situational, it's principle. And so if I don't want to hang out with you because of your political beliefs, I am also not willing to take $10 million from you to hire me for a gig. Like, they are the exact same thing to me. I'm very, very clear on that, because that money won't fill the hole that I feel in abandoning who I am for $10 million. And $10 million is a lot of money, but not if you got to sell your soul to get it, you know? I had a company try to buy us for $100 million last year, but they were going to have us cover the election from Dubai.
Yeah. But what about if you covered the election and told the truth?
Yeah, well, they won't give me $100 million for that. I'll tell you that much.
If you're reporting the truth.
What is this nonsense you speak of? Reporting the truth? Come on, that doesn't happen.
Still hope.
But
Still hope.
One day when women are running everything, that we'll get back to that. But in the meantime, well, it's been such a lovely time chatting with you. I'm really glad that we're having this conversation. What would be the last thing that you would say to anybody listening to this, man or woman? They're feeling a little bit inspired. What is the first thing that they should do to get this party started?
What, in terms of getting involved in politics, in terms of putting yourself out there?
How about both of those things and reducing a little overwhelm? It's a three-parter.
Yeah. I mean, I think one, on the overwhelm is finding your compass. Where are you going? What is it you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And I feel like that sounds so wanky, but
your North Star. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, I want to save the world, but like, what is it you want to do? Where do you want to get to? What does the world look like? Where are we going? Like, this is the biggest issue, I think, in politics, is no one knows where the fuck we're going. And like, that means that there is no business confidence. That means that no one knows, why am I putting up with this shit whilst you do that? Like, we need to tell people where they're going to be in 5-10 years. And we also need to do that for ourselves, I think. It's like, where do I want to be? Who do I want to look like? And how do I start being that person now? Like, I always say, like, when I first started out, I used to think of myself, when I was 21, I used to think of myself as at 30, at 35. And it's like, who is that woman? And like, how do I get there? And sometimes you have to pretend to be that person already. And you will get there eventually. And so it's like, work out who you are and where you're going, and what drives you and what gets you motivated. And that's as well in politics as well. I think, like, if there's something that you want to achieve, what is it? What does it look like? What when somebody says your name, what is it that they're going to think about? And that you can just keep going, because we also do need more specialists. We can't have more generalists in politics. We need people with conviction, and they know what they're doing. Like, that's why we get wrong politicians as well, because people just think, oh, I can do everything. They're like, no, you can't fucking do everything. No, we can all do the thing that we know we can do. And if we allow people to do that, we'd be in a better place.
Do it really well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's probably answered that question, I think, hopefully.
I love it. Listen, I went to a women's retreat like last year. It was one of my clients, and I was in Costa Rica. So she was like, why don't you just come? And I was like, okay. I'm not really like a yoga woo-woo. I'm more woo-hoo than woo-woo, but I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And we did journaling, and one of the prompts was, what kind of a woman do you want to be? When you really like turn everything else off and sit down with a notepad and a pen and you really think about that, you get real clarity on what kind of woman that you want to be. And I think that's at the start of like that, figuring out where you want to go. What do you want to look like in 5 years or in 10 years? And does that align with who you want to be? I want to be compassionate and caring and fearless and irreverent. You know what I mean? I don't care about being skinny or well-liked or married. You know what I mean? I'm really clear on what matters to me the most, right? And I think that's a big part of it, because when you know who you are, then you don't get washed around in the stream,
And you get taken more seriously, right? Because people know who you are. Like, this is part of the problem. It's like, if you haven't worked that bit out, then somebody can manipulate you into being who they want you to be rather than who you want to be, because you're open. Well, this sounds super woo-woo, but you're open to that because you don't know what you look like and what good looks like to you, because you haven't decided what your parameters are. This is a much different conversation than I thought we were going to have.
No, here we are. But I mean, that's at the core of it, right? Because when you're really firm in that, then it doesn't matter what people say or if they disagree. It doesn't. No, this is who I am. This is my core. You know.
Yeah, and that doesn't require money as well. I think that's a big thing. It's like that doesn't require you to have all of the material things. Is when you can say, "This is who I am," because you can get there. But we know who you are. You have your heart set on who you are, and then everything else is irrelevant.
Yeah, I agree. Well, this has been a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for taking time to sit with me this morning or this evening or this afternoon in your world. We're on different sides of the planet, which is one of the things I love about podcasting. And the pandemic kind of gave us this great gift of just like everyone is suddenly connected across, continents and everything else. So thank you for all the work that you've done. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your insight. I really appreciate it. I'm sure that people listening to this podcast will enjoy it as well. Before we go, where can people find you, support you? We'll put all your links and everything in the show notes, of course, but
Where can people find me? You can just find me on LinkedIn. I'm not an influencer. You don't want to know about that. You can just see me on LinkedIn with a nice happy corporate photo. And if you want to say something, just let me know.
There you go. Well, we'll make sure all those links are in the bottom, and people can access you and support that work that you're doing with Matt PR, and connect with you on LinkedIn. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Take care.
Excellent. Thanks for tuning in to What Do We Do Next? Just like we were saying, everybody wants to know where you're going to be in 5 or 10 years. No one knows what to do. Hopefully this podcast is giving you guys a little bit of insight and inspiration to help you figure out what do we do next. So until next time, be excellent to each other.